Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Bugonia, starring Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, Aidan Delbus, and Alicia Silverstone, directed by Yorgo Lanthimos. Welcome back to Yorgo Lanthimos after reviewing Poor Things and Kind to Kindness and his other works, and now I'm here for Bugonia. So, will it be as good as Poor Things, or will this be another downer for Mr. Lanthimos' career? Let's get into it and find out. Teddy, played by Jesse Plemons, narrates about how it all starts with a flower and how a bee collects its honey from a flower as he and his cousin Don, played by Aidan Delbus, are beekeepers. And I get the impression Teddy takes advantage of Don, as we'll see throughout the movie, as he thinks about kidnapping a CEO of a company named Michelle, played by Emma Stone, because Teddy is led to believe she's an alien, as we see Michelle exercising for the day, as does Teddy and Dawn exercising together, as Michelle goes to work, where she is the boss, as Teddy and Dawn plan on kidnapping Michelle. And the cinematography looks good, as it is a well-made movie. Teddy and Dawn camp out as Teddy gives a stab with a needle to Dawn, as we see Michelle walking into her office and filming a commercial for her company. And after finishing it off, she drinks and lets people get off work at 5:30 p.m. to be with their families. And after the day is over for her, Michelle drives home as Teddy and Dawn get to her on her property and kidnap her, as she first beats their asses up until she gets knocked the fuck out thanks to a needle as they bring Michelle to their basement in their house while shaving her off her hair, as so she doesn't connect to her mothership. No, and are these motherfuckers that stupid? Or is Yorgo Lanthimos trying to make a sci-fi movie? Because the execution was poor, but the performances are good. But do I like the characters? Not all that much. Teddy and Dawn put on some white makeup all over her, and when they get dressed, Dawn asks if he is supposed to say anything to her, and Teddy says don't say anything at all, as Michelle wakes up and wonders what the fuck is going on here, as she says to her she's an alien, and chopped off all of her hair so she can't call her mothership, as she tries to talk her way out of captivity by saying she can give away to spook them. But Teddy isn't buying her bullshit right off the fucking bat, as Teddy wants to go to her mothership, and she says she isn't an alien and wants to help them while they killed a family member of theirs, which I'll bring up a little later, as this is a new level of weird to me. As this isn't as good as Poor Things. If you don't remember, I gave a middle of the road recommendation to that movie, whereas I don't like how fucking weird this is, and it's executed rather poorly by director Yorgo Lanthimos. Teddy and Dawn watch Michelle crying, as Teddy still believes she's an alien and tells Dawn to stick to the plan, while Teddy thinks about what they're putting in his mother, Sandy, played briefly by Alicia Silverstone, as she says not go through what she's going through. And we move on to 3 days later until the lunar eclipse, excuse me, happens, as Teddy rides his bicycle to work until he gets stopped by a cop named Casey, who used to babysit Teddy when he was younger. As he's a different person as he gets older, and eventually he continues to ride his bike back to work in a factory of some kind, as we see a little bit of it while he chats with Tina. And so far, this movie is too fucking random. And I also get why it's called Bugonia, because he deals with bees, as it's a Greek belief that bees could be spontaneously be generated from the carcass of a sacrificed bull or ox, which makes sense in my opinion. Teddy hears Michelle's confession saying she's an alien, but he still doesn't believe her, as Michelle is supposed to be 45 years old. That was brought up earlier in the film, and Emma Stone acts okayish, I'll say at best. Well, Teddy acts all abusive and violent as Dawn gets scared, and Michelle tries to talk them into letting her go nonstop. And she believes Teddy is mentally ill and needs professional help. And after seeing this movie twice for this review, yeah, he does need help as he acts like all mental and shit. And which makes me think this motherfucker needs help by all means. And this they study for their ship visit and their space visit, excuse me. And I don't really care for these two main characters as they're completely stupid. 2 days until the lunar eclipse comes, and Michelle tries to find a way to off the chains until Teddy and Dawn come in with a shotgun pointed at Michelle, and she confesses she's an alien from outer space, as she wants to move on to some kind of compassionate communication because she wants to start over, and Teddy is forced to electrocute Michelle, which seems like the wrong thing to do, and I'm thinking he's a psychopath for letting someone electrocute in the most painful way possible, as Teddy apologizes to Michelle for electrocuting her, and she thinks about his mother Sandy, being tested by Michelle's company. And one day before the lunar eclipse comes, as Teddy rides his bike to the grocery store and let Michelle off the chains to eat with Teddy and Dawn with a shower and a shit ton of wigs, and have some kind of meal together. And Yurgo has a weird imagination, as I've always felt with his movies in general. And the editing isn't as tight as this felt like a 2-hour movie, as I felt every minute of it as it felt long. While eating, Teddy and Michelle have the most intense and awkward conversation while Dawn wants to use the restroom, and with Teddy forcing Dawn to stay in a spot at the table, as Teddy force chokes Michelle because she wants to kill the bees and almost kills her for that reason. And they put her back in the basement, as it feels the weirdest, but it's a little satisfying, but not as satisfying as Poor Things, in my opinion. Casey comes to the house to ask questions about Michelle's missing case, as he sees some weird things all over the house and sees the bees while Dawn watches Michelle in the basement as she talks to him about letting her go, and he says he's not supposed to talk to her, as she tells him how much Teddy takes advantage of Dawn, but he lets himself go by blowing his brains out, which was a very graphic scene from the get-go, as Teddy kills off Casey by smashing his head, which was again a graphic scene, and it was acted pretty well, as this is the best acted scene in this entire movie, in my opinion. Teddy comes in wondering what the hell happened to Dawn, as she explains he blew his own damn brains out, and Michelle says she has a cure for Sandy, which is in a bottle of antifreeze jug, and to get it from her car, and I know she's bullshitting him, as Teddy hits Michelle in the knee and rides his bike to the hospital to give Sandy the cure, which ends up killing her. And I knew Michelle was bullshitting him when she said that, as that was predictable. While Michelle escapes from the chains and goes upstairs and sees the different body parts of getting up into space. What was the point of that scene, other than telling me something I already know, which is Teddy is one crazy motherfucker? And is this movie for dummies, which kind of pissed me off, but I'm not completely angry with this movie, but I just don't care for the movie as much, if that makes sense. Teddy leaves the hospital and gets back home and finds Michelle looking into the room, and he explains there were 2 people he killed to get what he wants, which doesn't make much sense, so she monologues about how he's fucked, as she brings up humanity, and she tells him that he can save Earth. And we move on to the day the lunar eclipse comes in the evening, and Michelle takes Teddy to her work while they have Dawn's dead body in the back seat. And when she gets out of the car, Michelle is walking funny for reasons like they tortured her. When they get to her office, Michelle puts in a code, to the closet, as it takes her a while, and this third of the movie doesn't make much sense. Michelle does get the code right, and it opens the closet door, and Teddy goes in with a bomb, believing it's a teleporter. and explodes into pieces when he gets inside, which was a random fucking moment of the movie. And Michelle is on the way to the hospital as she jumps out of the ambulance while on the move and gets back to the building she works at and goes back to her office to teleport to her mothership. As it turns out, she was an alien, as the others speak an alien language with her, and they tell her to kill planet Earth, and it does die while the only things alive were the pets, like cats and dogs, for example, and nothing else in the world lives. As they're lying dead, all lying dead, and I'm thinking to myself, what kind of an ending is that? As this climax was shitty, with a shitty ending. And is this the best Your Girl Lanthimos can do? Because it's a bunch of shit. And I cannot go with this ending as it sucks ass. But how much does this movie suck ass? Is it better than Poor Things? No. But is this the best bad movie after Poor Things? Which, like I said, I gave a middle of the road recommendation to. Let's talk about it and find out. I'll give this movie a 4.8 out of 10. Another weird one by director Yorgo Lanthimos, as the cinematography looks good and it is a well-made movie and the performances are good, but do I like the characters? No. But the plot is absolutely a new level of fucking weird to me. As this isn't as good as Poor Things, or middle of the road like Poor Things, but remember, I gave that movie a middle of the road recommendation, and if you saw that my review of that film, I liked it and I don't at the same time, whereas here, I don't like it because it's a random subject as it's executed kind of poorly by Lanthimos. This is a better movie in Lanthimos' biography, with an exception of Poor Things, as it has its moments of not being good, but you get to the fucking shitty ending in the climax. And the movie itself was too fucking random, as Emma Stone's character is supposed to be a 45-year-old woman, and which she portrays it okay-ish, in my opinion, as the other two main characters are stupid enough as it is, and the editing isn't as tight, as this feels like a 2-hour movie, as I felt every minute of it, it felt long. Yorgo has a weird imagination of how to tell these stories, as I've always felt that with his other movies. So this is forced for me to give it a weak non-recommendation. It just felt the weirdest, but a little satisfying, but not as satisfying as Poor Things, which I keep bringing up for reasons, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, I just didn't like the movie because it felt the weirdest, which doesn't make it enough to me to make this a great movie, in my opinion. So I'd like to thank you guys for returning to Yorgo Lanthimos, and until he comes up with another project, don't act strange.